Take the money out of your pocket and really look at it. A piece of cotton and ink, a face, a number, a few clever patterns to stop you copying it. On its own, it's almost useless. You can't eat it, it barely burns, you can't build anything with it. The number in your banking app is worth even less. It isn't even paper, just light on a screen. And yet people will hand you food, a home, and years of their life in exchange for it. To see why, forget banks and governments for a moment and meet a baker. It doesn't matter when she lived or where. Bakers have existed almost as long as cities have. She has one warm loaf, fresh out of the oven, and the whole history of money, thousands of years of it, comes down to a single question. What will she take for the loaf? Go back far enough, and the answer is nothing. In a small village, the baker knows you. She hands over the bread and simply remembers that you owe her. No coins, just a favor and a memory. We're often told trade began with barter, 2 chickens for a pot, and that money was invented to fix it. But the people who actually study this say it mostly didn't happen that way. Before money, villages ran on debt and trust. I help you now, you owe me later. And everyone keeps a rough tally in their head. So the first money was never a coin, it was a promise, a way of remembering who owed what. Money was an IOU long before it was ever a thing you could hold. But memory only works when everyone knows everyone. Carry the loaf into a city full of strangers and I'll owe you stops working. So the baker starts asking for something real. A handful of grain, a cup of salt, a string of seashells. Then, around 2600 years ago, in a kingdom called Lydia, someone had a sharper idea. They stamped little discs of precious metal, each with the same weight and worth, the first coins. Now, the baker was happy. Gold and silver were rare, they didn't rot, and everyone everywhere wanted them. For thousands of years, that's what money was. A piece of something genuinely valuable placed in her hand. There was one problem. Gold is heavy, and carrying it makes you a target. So people began leaving their gold with goldsmiths, who locked it in a vault and handed back a paper receipt. And soon, they realized you didn't need to fetch the gold to spend it. You could just pass on the receipt, and the baker would take it, trusting she could swap it for real gold whenever she liked. For the first time, the money in her hand had no value at all. It was a promise printed on paper. Then, the goldsmiths spotted their own trick. Almost no one ever came to collect their gold. So they started writing more receipts than they had gold in the vault, and lending out the difference. Money made of nothing but ink and confidence. And it worked, as long as no one looked too closely. Eventually, governments took over the promise and made it official. Every banknote was a guarantee. Bring it in, and we'll trade it for a fixed amount of gold. Your money was still, underneath everything, a receipt for something you could dig up and hold. And then, in the 20th century, that last thread was quietly cut. After the Second World War, the world's currencies were pinned to the US dollar, and the dollar alone was pinned to gold. $35 an ounce. That was the anchor holding the whole system to something real. On the 15th of August, 1971, President Nixon went on television and cut the rope. From that night on, the dollar could no longer be traded for gold. The promise was switched off. And almost overnight, nearly all the money on earth was backed by nothing you could ever hold. What we've used ever since has a name. Fiat money. Fiat is Latin for let it be done. Money that's valuable because the government declares it so. There is nothing in a vault behind your money now. No gold, no silver, nothing at all. So what holds it up? 2 things. And both are only agreements between people. The government demands you pay your taxes in it, so you have no choice but to want it. And everyone else has agreed to accept it, so you can pass it on. Your money is worth something for one reason. We all quietly behave as if it is, which makes it one of the largest shared stories our species has ever told. And today, most of it isn't even paper. Only about 3 coins in every 100 exist as cash. The other 97 live as numbers glowing inside bank computers. Stranger still, most of that money was never printed or minted. It was typed. When a bank gives you a loan, it doesn't move someone else's savings into your account. It writes a new number where there wasn't one before. The loan itself creates the money. Most of the money in the world right now is a promise typed into a database and nothing more. Which brings us back to the baker, because a story can be believed and a story can be doubted. In Germany, in 1923, people stopped believing in their money almost all at once. Her loaf cost 250 marks in January. By November, the same loaf cost 200 billion. People carried their wages home in wheelbarrows, racing to spend before the numbers grew again. Some gave up and burned the banknotes for heat. The paper was worth less than the warmth it gave off. In Zimbabwe, in 2008, the government printed a single note worth $100 trillion. It wasn't enough to buy the baker's loaf, or even the bus ride to reach her. In both places, nothing physical had changed. The paper was exactly the same as before, only the story had collapsed, and the money became what it always secretly was, just paper. Now the baker won't take it. She would rather keep the bread. But none of this means money is a scam. The fact that it holds up on nothing but shared belief is the astonishing part, because the baker never really wanted the paper or the coins or the numbers. She wanted to know that whatever you gave her could become what she needs: flour, a roof, medicine for her own child. Money is simply the promise that a stranger's paper will one day feed her family. And when that promise holds, something almost unbelievable becomes possible. A person on the far side of the world will grow your food, build your phone, and fly you home for a number on a screen because you both trust the same story. Money is proof that millions of strangers who will never meet can still cooperate on faith alone. And when you spend it, you're not spending paper, you're spending hours of your own life saved as a promise and trading them for someone else's. So look at the money in your hand one more time. On its own, it's still worth exactly nothing. And nearly every person alive has quietly agreed to treat it as if it's worth everything. An agreement they renew without a word every single day. That shared act of faith may be the most powerful thing humans have ever built. It is also the most fragile. Your money has no value. What has value is the loaf and the trust that lets the baker hand it over. And every morning, all of us decide together to believe for one more day.